So personal branding is a topic that I've been meaning to touch on and make a video on for quite some time now, just because it's had such a big impact on my life and on my company as we're growing it right now. So I want to talk a little bit about why it's important, especially as founders, but just in general, why it's important, and then give you some questions that you can ask yourself and some things that you should be focused on as you're building, investing in your own personal brand. So just a quick story on why it is important to invest in your personal brand. So I started my first company directly out of college. It was a virtual reality startup, and then at the same time I started my first agency. Both essentially failed. Those brands died, right? But throughout those transitions, I carried my personal brand with that. And most of the time, like, a company's going to die, or it's going to get acquired, or some change is going to happen, you will always have your personal brand. You're not always going to have that company brand. So it's super, super crucial to invest in that personal brand, especially with all of the innovation that's coming. So just one reason, there's definitely a lot of benefits, definitely a lot of perks, and a lot of things that can happen when you do build that brand. But I do want to talk about what are some things that you should be looking at when you're first starting to invest in building your personal brand. So number one, I would say you have to know you. And that's probably the most important thing, because no one can follow you if they don't know where you're going, if you don't communicate that, if you're not clear on who you are. So what I would start with is just ask yourself a bunch of questions. Maybe if you've never created any content or put anything else out there, maybe start with consuming other people's content. And I think Brittany Crystal put it in the perfect way. She said, start with consuming other people's content and then just asking yourself how you feel.
I know a lot of people just don't know themselves. A lot of people don't have that self-awareness. So how do you go about finding that?
So it takes practice, and it's actually a constant evolution and a moving target. I think about this a lot, like who I am now and who I thought I was even 2 years ago has evolved, and the potential that I know I can achieve has changed. And so it's not like, oh, you're self-aware, so now you're done. So I just want people to realize that, like, that's not a thing. But I do think we hold ourselves, just in general, like, I've been part of that corporate culture and I understand how that works. We hold ourselves back a lot in a lot of ways where we don't need to. And we don't work on exercising our voice or really asking ourselves any questions. People don't even take inventory. They're so busy getting by that they don't take inventory of how they even feel. Like, do you even like your job? Are you content in your relationships? Or, like, have you even thought about it? Do you know why you're feeling the way you feel? So a course that I'm going to be putting out is strictly around clarity, but even asking those questions just makes you feel like, oh, I'm headed in the right direction, or no, I'm not.
That's going to be a good place to start. So with all of our clients now, we do this big ideation session. We just ask questions and we get to know them. We understand them. I would do that for yourself and take some time to get to know you, because the better you know yourself, the better you're going to be able to communicate that to your followers and to your community. And number two, I would say that's what's your story? And that's a very, very important part. So a lot of times when I say, hey, tell your story, a lot of people think, yeah, I was here when I was 6 and now that I'm 25, I'm here. That's just one story. So a better question is, what's your overarching story? Like, where are you going? Who are you? Marvel Cinematic Universe does a very, very good job of this, right? Like, they have Iron Man movies, they have Thor movies, they have Hulk movies, they have all these different trilogies and movies, and then they have the Avengers series, and all of them add up to this overarching narrative. So what's your overarching narrative? Where are you going? If you understand that, it's a lot easier to communicate that to your followers, and it's a lot easier for them to follow you, because again, they know where you're going. No one can follow you if you don't know where you're going, and you can't take them there. Number three, I would say, what is your niche? That's something that I struggled with. I never wanted to lock myself into something, but recently I've just come to realize that I can go a lot further if I niche down and I specialize in something. I think someone sat me down once and they drew 2 circles. So the first circle, let's say I love LinkedIn, I love video games, I love entrepreneurship, and I love technology. You draw an arrow for all 4 of those things. They're only going to go so far. And then the other circle that you draw, it's just LinkedIn, let's say. That is going to take you so much further because you're able to just focus on that one thing. So niche down, and then when you get to the point where you can branch out, that's when you can focus on other things. So what's your niche? It's so much easier to stand out when you specialize in something. And what that is completely up to you. You've got to love it. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to create content and stand out in those areas. But find that niche and just own that and own that lane. And lastly, I would say community is going to be the most important part, because again, like, influence in general, like, you can't Having a personal brand, it means to have influence. And influence is just to have trust. And having that trust is going to allow you to inspire people to take action. You can't inspire anybody without a community. You can't show that you have influence without a community. So I'd say build that community. And more importantly, make sure you actually own those assets. So get the emails, get the cell phone numbers. Maybe it's a Facebook or LinkedIn group or something like that, but own something, have something and own it. And it's a community that everybody can benefit from as well as yourself. You only need about 1,000 followers to actually monetize something. 1,000 people that genuinely care about you to make decent money on it. Not that that's all that personal branding is for, but build that community and help people. And you're going to go so much further if you're helping other people get to their goals. So where you do these things is like completely up to you. A lot of my focus is on LinkedIn. That's where I really started taking off, but I'm also on Instagram, I'm also on YouTube, I'm now on Patreon, and I'm on all these different platforms, and I'm focusing on building brand everywhere. I would say when you are a solopreneur or you're just getting started and you don't have a lot of time, maybe focus on one and just dominate it. And then when you have the time or you have the money to outsource or bring on a full-time videographer or writer or whatever that is, that's when you can look at branching out to other platforms. But I would say those are the 4 things that you should be focused on. And that is, you have to know you. You have to know who you are. What's your overarching narrative? What's that overarching story? Are you building a community? And then having that niche. I had to look at my paper because I forgot. But those are just some things that you should and could be looking on that are going to help you build that personal brand faster, and it's going to be more influential.